Welcome to Turtle WoW News with Vrograg. I'm your news anchor orc, Vrograg Fishslayer, here to bring you all the server news for the week of February 27th, 2024. With the lack of any large announcements, we'll continue to focus on community stories, from triumphs to despicable cheaters, Market Watch, and the changelog roundup. So, let's get to it. I'm the orc, and here's the news. Our top story today covers the unsettling revelations of an exploit that made waves on Nordinar. Multiple sources, both public and private, provided unsettling screenshots of Alliance players wearing PvP gear unavailable to them. To better understand how exactly this is an exploit, one needs to understand how the Alliance and Horde PvP gear sets differ. Statistically, the two sets are identical between their respective classes. However, visually they have marked variations. This is why authenticated screenshots of Alliance characters wearing Horde PvP gear was so disturbing. At a glance, the only way to achieve these visuals for a character would be to have the gear in one's transmogrification catalog, and since the gear is different between faction, it further implied players were receiving race changes. To the Turtle team's credit, they acted swiftly to run their own investigation on how players were achieving the gear and faction mismatch. About an hour after the story broke last week, the team reported that the violating players were using an undisclosed exploit involving PvP vendors and mind control. Further complicating matters is that at least one veteran player who legally received a race change back when they were still attainable had some of their faction mismatching PvP gear, which they obtained fair and square, removed in error. Now, this exploit has been since fixed. The actual exploiters had their transmog catalogs adjusted, exploited items removed, and the gold spent was not refunded. Exploiters will also find a not-so-subtle reminder text when logging onto their accounts for a week of their infraction. The team has also been notified of the case of the player who did nothing wrong and are reviewing their options. Stories like this are difficult to cover. It is imperative to make sense of complex stories like this, and I thank those parties who aided in bringing this to my attention. It helps dispel the illusion of conspiracy and demonstrates the tough behind-the-scenes work that the team has to do. Remember, team members are human too, and while enforcement was swift, errors with punishing innocent players can happen. It is through honest and open communications that we are able to bring all of this out into the light and ensure fairness and integrity. I'll take this moment to remind citizens of Azeroth to report any suspicious behavior to the appropriate authorities. Together, we can keep our community free from cheaters and exploiters. Our next top story is part of our continuing coverage of the Class Change Community Council. It has been nearly 2 months since invites were sent out to the applicants, and conversations have been happening in earnest. I'm not allowed to speak about the specifics of what anyone says in the exclusive forum, but as your community advocate, I think I owe it to all of you to update you as best I can. The discourse within the various channels has remained respectful and on task. With class changes officially slated for 1.17.2, there is still some time before actual ideas become development work. The dev team has primarily observed and lightly advised respective class discussions for future designs. To add to the general theory crafting and depth of work that community members could do, they were given access to a talent builder. This allows community counselors to propose new talents, tweaks, and adjustments to the existing talent trees within each class, while having a framework to work off of. For some more insight, I tallied up how active each class channel is by tracking how many posts are made. Since being off topic is largely discouraged, most of these numbers represent how much back and forth class counselors are having for each respective class. The best way to interpret these figures is that low numbers mean wide agreement on matters, and high numbers mean there is a lot of disagreement and conversation around the direction for a class. An analogy I've been using is that class changes are a bit like pulling a car into a shop for some work. Hunters and warlocks are in for a quick tune-up. Druid, mage, priest, and rogue are getting a tune-up, some new tires, and fixing an exhaust issue. Warrior is getting all the aforementioned work and maybe a fresh coat of paint. Paladins got in a nasty rear-end accident and need a lot of repair work, but at least the car isn't totaled. Shaman? Well, technically the frame exists, but it's in several pieces. It's a miracle they could even get it into the shop. Lighthearted analogies aside, with development for 1.17.2 becoming a focus following the next patch, the community representatives are ready when called upon to continue their work with the team, giving feedback, accounting for balance, and attempting to make Turtle WoW the best experience it can be. I would like to thank all the members of the Class Council for allowing me to bring some information out into the public and offer a window into the great volunteer work everyone is contributing. Stay tuned for more updates on the Class Change Council as they develop. In happy news, I wanted to announce that there is a new guild in the community that just added themselves to the storied history of Turtle WoW by getting their first Kel'Thuzad kill last week. Good job, Pantheon. Welcome to the top. It took a lot of tenacity transforming from the breakup of a previous guild. It was only this last summer that you were in Guild Recruitment Channel boasting about clearing BWL, and now look at you. I hope you brought some frost-resistant potions because it's chilly up here. Thanks to Class War finalist Hadjo for bringing me this triumphant story. That rounds out top stories for this week, and while we're on the topic of guild recruitment, I was given several stacks of fishing lures to air an advertisement. So enjoy, and we'll be right back with Market Watch.
Are you a nerd of Turtle WoW? Join Nerds of a Feather. Whether you're in North America or Europe, let this be your new home. New to raiding? No problem. We welcome first-time raiders with open arms. We're a fun-loving, casual guild with a no-jerk policy. So, leave your dragon-sized ego at the door. We have regular raid days for MC, BWL, and more. Message us today and flock to your fellow nerds.
Welcome to Market Watch, the best and worst market show from Turtle WoW, because it's the only one. All our market data is gathered from numbers provided by WoWauctions.net. Make sure to use their website for all your own market data research and investment due diligence. First to Telebim. The Alliance S&V 200 showed a lot of activity this month, especially trending up over 50%. The Horde S&V trended up more modestly by only 15%. Many of either faction's indexes trended in similar ways. The real difference I found was in enchanting. For Alliance, the index trended up about 2%, but showed real strength most recently. For the Horde, despite a mid-month spike, the index trended down 10% and conversely was continuing down. So what accounted for this discrepancy? Looking at some quick comparisons, the normally strongest commodities in enchanting mostly came down in value in the last 2 weeks. For the Alliance, despite the index's growth, Nexus crystals even dropped 4 gold, finishing under 11. Meanwhile, even though the Horde's index floundered, Illusion Dust and Greater Eternal Essences showed strong demand. That's when I reviewed the config file for the enchanting indexes I made. I nearly forgot Golden Pearls, since some of it are used on the highest level enchants available. And wow, I think that explains it. Mind the scaling on the graph. In the last 2 days, Golden Pearls jumped from 5 gold to a staggering 24. This vastly outscales anything else on the index, and similarly, on the Horde side, the value came down from 10 gold to 4. I just recently learned what market arbitrage means, and price differences this big certainly make it seem like something worth looking into. If not, then fishers remember to open up all your clams on Telebim. Over on Northernar, the S&V 200 weakened slightly, trending down 2%, closing the month at 9 even. There was a notable drop around the 19th, so I looked around the other indexes, but it was largely inconclusive. Sometimes the S&V just catches general market trends. and this is one of those cases. One index defying the odds continues to be herbalism. Despite more herb nodes being placed in the world, tithe DKP systems being officially banned, and consumables persisting through death, the cost of herbs is steadily climbing as of late. The old culprits of Plague Bloom, Mountain Silver Sage, Ice Cap contributed to herbalism's ascent, and surprisingly, so did Fade Leaf, which pushed up 25% in 2 weeks. However, one real surprise was Dreamfoil, which for the first time in months shot up in value, actually emerging from the sub-30 silver valuation. Observing the price since late December better illustrates what a massive change in direction this is for the herb. After 2 months of steady decline, this herb is on the move again. Also of note was a recent surge for the fishing index, which is largely dictated by the going value of stone scale eel. In the last 2 weeks, the price trended up by 5%, which has tanks all over worried of more pricey raid experiences. However, we have a lot more historical data for stone scale eel. And while the price might be considered not bad as previous months, changes made to fishing back in October continue to make this price still historically high. The outlook for fishers remains profitable if you can get the slippery little guys. That's all the time we have for Market Watch today. I hope you found some of the information here useful. Make sure to use wowauctions.net for all of your own market research. Remember to keep an eye on your coin, otherwise someone else will for you. Let's get back to the news. To round out today's program, we'll take a deeper look into February 20th's changelog with the weekly changelog roundup. The boss in Stratholme, the Unforgiven, was having trouble staying above ground to do its Frost Novus according to Tubso on the GitHub. Thanks to Turt Reynolds looking into the matter, evidently the apparition just forgot to turn its invisible off. The problem has since been rectified. While love is in the air, the particularly astute Eye of Beast noticed that doing the /kiss emote at QQ Pedal Feet wasn't giving the 200 hit point buff. Thanks to this GitHub poster's documentation of this buff being available on classic servers, the team fixed this discrepancy to make the server more vanilla-like. The ever-buggy Greater Windstones of Silithus made another appearance on the changelog. The history with these magic summoning stones is lengthy to say the least, but a previous change a few weeks back might have swapped the doesn't respawn issue with a can spawn more bosses problem according to the changelog. Hopefully the fix remedies the issue, but I'm sure we'll see Greater Windstones again on the changelog. It's an old Turtle WoW tradition. Just be wary, summoning those bosses involves expensive materials. Friend of the show Balake pointed out that one of the more humorous bugs to the GitHub, evidently the Abomination Wing Guardians known as Patchwork Golems, had the strange habit of including themselves in their own cleave ability. While raiders do appreciate their generosity, that damage rightfully belongs to the DPS of the raid, and now the golems are a little less confused. A malingering issue since the release of Lower Karazhan has been the extreme rarity of the 2 portal books for mages, Theramore and Stonard. The database had the drop rate fixed to 0.33% for 15 various and plentiful trash mobs in the Haunted Tower. The fact that the number of mages claiming to have either spell could be counted on one hand did rouse suspicion that something was wrong. Fortunately, the issue should now be rectified. Good luck to all the mages out there. And finally, a bug Turtle WoW News' owned Obomsawin Tallgrass experience firsthand was fixed. The new totem relic available to Shaman called Totem of the Calming River gave Shamans 6 mana per 5 seconds whenever their water shield was up. However, unbeknownst to Shaman, the MP5 continued generating threat from mana gain even when the Shaman was at full mana. While this is a minor issue, the cavern before the Twin Emperors in AQ40, raiders need to be careful to not generate any threat or they could be teleported far away from their group after the Anubisath Guardians are pulled. Thanks to IMC Dermot13 posting about this bug, Now a bombswin won't end up dead far away from her raid. That completes the changelog roundup for this week. This week's changelog is already out, so make sure to go check it out now so you can keep on top of all the latest adjustments coming to Turtle WoW. Well, that is all the time we have for the news today. I'd like to thank you all for taking time to watch the news program. I hope you found the information useful. Make sure to drop by to catch my weekly Fish and Chat stream this Saturday, noon US East Coast time. If you like this content and want to support me, make sure to like and subscribe. If you're feeling generous, Super Chat should be enabled on the channel as well. My comments, DMs, and emails are always open for feedback, constructive criticism, and any news items you'd like to share. If you have advertisements you'd like to air, I'm only a message away. I loved Nerds of a Feather's commercial. The ways to reach me should be in the description of the video. It's about time for me to head out. Recording live on Tuesday and stitching it together on Wednesday for a wider video release has been helping to spread out the workload. Thanks for being patient with me. I hope to see you all next time. Whatever you're doing, make sure to have fun, be safe, and remember, the deadliest weapon is knowledge.